Hello, everybody, and welcome to iTricks Interviews, featuring one of our favorite people, not only in magic, but somebody that we're fortunate enough to call a friend, Joshua J, joining us from New York. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm lovely. I'm just back in New York after being away a while. Good to be talking with you, man.
Yeah, everybody, I mean, if you're watching this and you likely know that Josh is one of the busiest men in magic, your lecture schedule is absolutely insane. So whenever you are watching this video, it could be a year, 5 years from now, that there's a good chance that Josh has either been in your town or will be there soon.
I hope so. Hope to meet all of you out there.
You are a busy, busy guy. All right, well, let's start right off with the questions. Outside of magic, who would you consider among your most influential people?
It changes all the time. I don't have a set answer for that. But lately, ironically enough, it's been music that's been motivating me. There are some instrumental albums, there are some artists that just really, I think, inspire magic. Specifically, I'm a big Nine Inch Nails fan, and they just released, at the time of this viewing, this album, this quadruple album called Ghosts. You can get it from their website. I think it's $5, and it's all instrumental. But interestingly enough, it's a very cool conceptual thing. What they did is they start with an image, burned out trees. It could be water, and then they go in the studio and they make music around that image. But the thing is, it also lends itself really well to magic. Literally listening to that album, I've already invented 2 pieces that are in my show.
Wow.
I use, maybe not even to their music, but the music inspires me. It sounds like train tracks, and that gets me going somewhere. It sounds like water boiling, and then I'm thinking eggs, and what can you do with boiled eggs? And it just goes from there. So the first thing is music inspires me a lot. The second one is movies. Again, I don't have an actor for you because an actor's reading a script, and it's for magic. It's more plot lines than about how a guy is delivering it for me. So certain movies really inspire me, and they're usually not anything concrete. It's not like I watch Indiana Jones and then boom, I'm off on some archaeologist act, which would be cool, by the way. No, it's more along the lines of certain movies put me in a state of mind where I find that after I watch them, I can create or I can brainstorm with a higher sort of acuity.
So you would say that it's almost more of a random influence. Like if somebody has a compelling idea that's not necessarily tied to anything, then your creativity is stirred by that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I try not to write anything creative. I can write to describe a magic trick, but any sort of writing where I need to be thinking and not just sort of transmitting the way a trick works, I always try and watch a movie first. And it can be a documentary. I mean, I just thought of a name, though.
Okay.
Asked for a name. Here's your name.
What's the name?
Andy Warhol.
Ah, Pittsburgh's own Andy Warhol.
I know you're a Pittsburgh guy, so you can appreciate that. But Andy Warhol, I think, is a great influence because he mixed a lot of genres, which you know that's my big thing, is trying to mix magic in other genres. And here was a guy whose work permeated movies, canvas, drawing, sketching, happenings, buildings, events, music, parties. I mean, he was trying to put his stamp on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And had he lived, we know we'd have seen a lot more things with Andy Warhol touch. But he's a very, very inspiring guy to watch because everything from his camouflage series, if you know what that is, to his sort of found art or recreating things that are there, they're all, I think, so applicable to magic in different ways.
If you were to have a time capsule and go to talk to a young Joshua J, what advice would you give him?
Oh man, how many hours do we have on this podcast? I don't know. You know, I don't play the regret game. I really don't.
Well, maybe not even regret. Like hey, or here's how to avoid mistakes. But I mean, surely there are things that you've learned to hone your creativity and stuff, and maybe not big pitfalls, but little tweaks.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it's all part of the process, right?
Okay.
And For example, if there's one thing I'm widely criticized for, it's releasing a book at age 17.
Gotcha.
And there's definitely validity to that. And there's so many things I would change about the way that book was released and when it was released and so on. But that said, I still lecture. If you have that book, I still lecture on a lot of things in that book. I still use a lot of things in that book. I would change a million things about it, but that book also sent me around the world, and I have only fond memories of that time. And that book was a stepping stone to get me where I am. So, like I said, yeah, I would love to change a million things. I wish I could go back, and we've talked about it with Murphy's. I may go back and revamp that book because I think the material, the material still holds up pretty well. The writing, photos, the layout, not so much. The other thing is I spent a lot of times on projects that didn't pan out like I wanted them to, or didn't pan out at all.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me that, my first thing is to come back and say, oh, don't mess around with this book that you never got published or never wanted to publish. But writing that book set me up for the next one, for the one that finally did get published. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or tricks that were complete failures that I sunk a lot of money and time and resources into. They always led to something that ended up being.
Let me ask you this: if you obviously have a very good mindset on maybe what one would consider the failures of a career, of which a successful one will have more than most. But have you ever taken that too hard? Have you ever let that kind of take you out of your element for a little bit? Would that maybe be the advice, that understand that these are all stepping stones to larger success?
Yeah, I mean, this is a lesson that all of the viewers and I myself too, we experience and have to re-experience every time we do anything creative, because you always think your next idea is the big one and the best one. And you can't go into an idea, I don't think, I can never jump into a new book or a new trick or a new piece with cynicism, right? With, it's probably not going to work out, who cares?
Yeah.
'Cause then there's no enthusiasm, there's no spark behind it. But it's hard to kill your babies, right? Isn't that the old expression? I mean, it's hard to put them to rest. And, every time I talk to you, I know you're not into the card magic, but I mean, every time I talk to you, I've got 10 new card things on my plate that I'm showing everybody. And it kills me that by next week, 3 of those I'll just quit working on because they're not going anywhere. But that's part of growing, right? You can't release them all, or else well, let's not name names here.
Oh, come on. You can feel free. You can feel free. Oh, I'm sure, I'll tell you what, if anybody's watching this, then they probably have their own names that they can go ahead and fill in.
It's their names here.
Where do you see Magic on TV going?
How dare you ask me that?
Why?
I don't watch TV. No, I'm just kidding. I don't watch.
I'm gonna quiz you.
I don't watch TV much. That's the truth. My my TV here is almost always playing DVDs. So I try and stay very much out of the TV Magic world, because in the last decade it's drifted so far from what live Magic performance is all about. I'm not commenting on that. I'm just saying that, as you know, Blaine and Angel and all the other people, they create segments for TV, which it's its own art form, right? I mean, it's reaching through windows and pulling people's teeth out and stuff like that. But in the live performance arena, we don't construct tricks around situations as often as we bring magic to people.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the wrong guy. Now, what we're sort of where I'm at now, I have some TV things coming up, and I have planned some special segments, but in promotion of this book that I told you about for the public. Okay. But I don't have anything like prepared that can only be done on TV.
Well, let me ask you that. I mean, do you think that maybe that air of authenticity, that there's something that you would see live, is there a future for that? Will TV Magic on a big scale return to that, or highlight that more in the next 5 years, let's say?
It has to. It has to. I mean, I think viewers can relate to this, and maybe they can comment on this as well. But I pose this question to them. As you look, if you're a viewer, if you're a magician, then you get the same questions that I get every time I work, every time I go out socially or whatever. And it's always about who's on TV. And it's shifted recently from, can he really do that? Can he really levitate? Can so and so do this? I saw a guy and he did that. Is that real? To, it's all camera tricks. It's all nobody can do that, right? So the validity, the sort of the trust that I think magicians had is fading away. And I think that the only reactionary measure that can be taken is, I think we're going to see magic specials and magic on TV go the way of the live studio audience, and the tricks toned down and made much less about the trick than about the delivery. And it's gonna, I think the next person to break through is gonna be telling great stories and really engaging, and it's gonna be less about what he's doing and more about how he's doing it.
So I guess my next question, I think you probably have already answered it, but would that be your advice to, let's say there's a young magician who's has a TV deal and wants your advice on how to shape what the content's going to be? Is that what you would say? Like, let's say right now, do you think that people are ready for it right now, or will they have to implement some of these elements that have been so successful on Blaine and Angel, those kind of projects?
Well, and that's no comment on them. What they've done is phenomenal, and more power to them, and good luck with it. No, but I'm ready. I'm ready for personality-based magic. I'm ready for somebody who we're talking about them more than their tricks.
Gotcha.
And that's certainly where I'm going to aim my efforts, with any television things that I'll do in the future. And I think that that's the unexplored territory right now. Around the world, that's what you see. I mean, when I was in the UK, I just was there for 2 months, and Darren Brown, of course, is all the rage, and he's obviously so amazing. Mm-hmm. But I noticed almost nobody would approach me after shows or lectures and be talking about what Brown was doing, what his latest cool stunt is. They were just talking about him. He's this enigma. Can he really do it? Is he, how does he do all these things? I think he's the most amazing guy on television right now. He's been able to capture the public's fascination with his personality. And he's bigger than his tricks. And
Well, obviously, anybody who's a fan of yours know that you edit the Talk About Tricks section of Magic Magazine, as well as release a prolific line of your own products. How do you decide, let's say, for example, the 10-card tricks that you mentioned, that at all times you have kind of on deck, almost playing in the minor leagues in your brain. Right. How do you decide which ones get called up to the majors?
Well, it's a great question, and I got very strict sort of sieve that they all go through. I think that step one is work it out to the furthest extent of my abilities. And when I think I've got something good, the next step is workshop it with everybody whose opinion I trust. Brain Trust, because they're the people I collaborate with most often. Room Clan, Joel Givens. I just ran something by my friend Sean Farquhar up at Magic Camp in Canada, and a whole bunch of New York crew to take a look at it. And that feedback's really helpful. So once you get that feedback, I go back to the drawing board and I work and I work and I work, and I'm showing it around to family and friends. And the next step is the long part, and that's you test it out. I mean, I'm working almost every week when I'm back doing strolling magic and stuff, so it goes into the repertoire and it gets circled. And if it is getting a great reaction, it gets developed even further. If it's getting a dead reaction, it gets tossed. If there's potential, it gets worked on. And then, and only then, when I think it's met with my approval, my sort of brain trust approval, and been worked through, then I explore whether this is something worth releasing.
So what would you say for other people's tricks? Will you try out other people's tricks before you publish them in the magazine, or is that just all in your head?
I used to, but it's too tough. I mean, 6 tricks a month going on 7 years. I mean, I forget more tricks than you can possibly imagine. So when things that really move me come through, of course, I learn them and use a few of them occasionally. But I can't do it with everything. I have to just trust. And you know what? It's really, really easy to tell when somebody's worked through an idea and when something's a pipe dream.
What would you say is the biggest telltale sign?
Just if there's an obvious gap in logic.
Gotcha.
Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, it can just be in the way a trick's presented. I mean, you can tell if somebody's never presented. I'm watching some web video of somebody stuttering through some idea. Well, it's clear that they haven't ran through this. Or similarly, I'll give you an example. I just looked at a trick which was very good. It had very good potential. You force a card, um, and you go to predict the card, and it's the wrong card. So he writes on the back, he says, okay, I'm going to make another prediction. And he writes in marker on Sharpie another card. And it's
Gotcha.
still the wrong card. And he writes another one, and it's still the wrong card. But then he folds the card in a certain way so that when you hold it up to the camera, or to the audience, not the camera, it folds up and it makes the new thing kind of come
wow.
out
Okay,
the
yeah.
card. And I thought, great idea, but in my opinion, the sort of obvious extension of that is you got to unfold the card again and have it be
It's got to be the card.
right card, right? You've got to, because Jack of Hearts doesn't matter. He picked the two of clubs. So you've got to go through this cool origami bit and then unfold it, and boom, it's the right card. So, there's just a little tweak, and I told the creator this, and he goes back, and hopefully he'll work out a way to do it, and I'll be happy to print it, because I think that's a cool trick. It just wasn't finished to my mind,
So you make sure that everything gets on, the creative process. That you're able to work out the kinks.
Absolutely.
Who is your favorite performer who is nothing like you? So I guess a non-Tweety Manhattan liberal.
All right. Who is nothing like me, who I love? I love Dave Williamson. Everybody who knows my work knows how much I respect everything about that guy. It just blows me away. I'm in awe, truly, of Dave's talent. My friend Rune Clan, I think, is one of the most mature, sort of deep magical thinkers. And honestly, you wouldn't know it to watch him, because on stage he is zany and crude and crass. Imagine Amazing Jonathan, sort of, in a Danish direction. He's just off the wall.
Over the
and
top.
Nothing like me. And the funny thing is, we brainstorm all the time, and we use a lot of the same material, but we can't. We have to do it so differently, because he can just get away with so many different things that I could never get away with. So those two guys stick out in my head. I mean, there are other guys like Steve Bargatze who are very character-based, whereas I really try and make my magic very conversational and really blur the line between conversation and real life, and then when I'm into a trick.
Gotcha.
And Steve's very much about the performance. But those guys grab me.
All right, now here's, I think, the most difficult question, maybe most interesting question. We saved it for last for a reason. How did you decide to go pro, and what were the decisions that you had to make before that was a sure thing?
There wasn't a lot of decision that went into it, because I knew from a really young age that this was for me. I'm lucky in that I came from a household with parents who were not totally practical. They had that practical element that all parents have for their kids, but it wasn't find a career that's lucrative. It was do what you love and then find a way to make that lucrative. So, from the earliest days, I mean, it's all been about following my dream and finding new avenues and new ways to push magic. So, that was never really hard. I mean, obviously, the hard part is when you dive so deep into it like I have, and then you wonder in retrospect if it was the right decision. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, I am a slave to magic. I don't do anything else. It seems like I am constantly performing, lecturing, writing about magic. When I'm not, I'm watching magic. When I'm not, I'm socializing with magicians, and it's a true lifestyle. And I'm so deep in this world that sometimes you wonder what life would be like without it. But I don't mean for that to say like I'm unhappy. I'm like happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that was really where I was going with the question, is that, even if, and I think that would almost be a piece of the advice, that, you have to have that element of blind faith when you first get into something, that, like it's going to work out, and you have faith in yourself that you can make it work out. But when you look back as an adult and you see you have rent to pay and there are bills and there's, very real aspirations that you have as you get older, those are things that you have to reconcile, right?
That's right. Justin, if I lean back in this chair, could you just psychoanalyze me and maybe take out your notepad and start jotting down notes?
That's what people can expect from the iTricks interviews. I'm a probing interviewer.
No, but of course there are those concerns. But what can I tell you? I mean, I don't think there's anything in the world I could be doing that would make me happier than this.
Yeah.
I am so happy that my career is where it's at. I mean, there's obviously a lot of places I want to go and a lot of things I want to do better, but I'm weird. I'm not so addicted to performing that I want to be New York's busiest magician. I mean, I have guys that I respect. There's a guy named Matt Furman in New York who's a great magician, and he must be the busiest magician on earth. This guy works more than you could possibly believe, and he's great, and he's got a flourishing career, and even feeds me work once in a while. And it's amazing, but I wouldn't want his lifestyle because he's so busy performing. And I've told him that, and he finds a way to make it work, and it's amazing for him, and he's, he should be very proud. But I like that I get up in the morning, and some days it's about writing, and some days it's about performing, and some days it's about neither one. So, what can you do? So
that variety is necessary for you. That you have the flexibility to when you're not lecturing, then you can be doing a multitude of other things.
Sure, and I'm working on this ongoing photography series about magic, trying to put magic in 2 dimensions, and so right now I'm working with 3 really great photographers, and that's yet another way. It's not performing, it's not writing, it's not lecturing, it's not speaking about magic. I've got this book coming out for the public. So there is this whole new genre where I'm going on this book tour, and it needs its own kind of show. So I've got to put together a tailored show for universities and bookstores,
Yeah. That is fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, if there's anybody watching when it comes to careers, you would be very well served if you had Joshua Jays. He's I think one of the busiest guys in terms of road work that I know, and I know a fair amount of magicians. But thank you very, very much for joining us, John.
Thank you for having me, Justin.